Welcome to Let's Talk Business. I'm your host, James Price. This podcast has been designed to address business pain points, often neglected, but if dealt with correctly, can really enhance business value and performance. I've had over 30 years experience in business, and I currently own JPO Business Proprietary Limited, a business valuation, advisory, and transaction firm. We help private business clients across Australia and internationally grow, change, and enhance the value of their businesses. Welcome back to Let's Talk Business podcast. I'm your host, James Price, and this is episode 7. And today I'm delighted to welcome a guest who I've known for a number of years now and got to know by chance actually as one of the first podcasts I'd done as a guest. His name's Joseph Vea, and he's business owner of All State Scaffolding, a scaffolding business based in Western Sydney and operating throughout Sydney. Welcome, Joe. Great to have you on board.
Great to be here. Thanks, James, for the invite.
Look, it's great. It's great. You know, like you put me in the hot seat a few years ago. I can't remember how long ago it was now. It was back in the COVID days.
Back, I think, about 2 years ago-ish.
Yeah.
Two years ago, yeah.
We were all locked down, and you know, I think I even flaunted the lockdown.
No, we were following the rules.
Oh, were we?
Yeah, we were following the rules.
Which rules were we following?
The government and whatever they have on. So yeah.
But it was a good experience. We had a good chat, didn't we?
Definitely. Feels a bit different though, being on the other side now. So,
yeah, well, the spotlight's on you, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're here. My listeners, they like hearing insights, and I think you know, I've thought for a while you've got some good life and business insights. I'm here to drag them out of you. Joe.
Yeah, sweet. We'll see how we go.
Hey, tell me a bit about this business, All State Scaffolding. What do you do?
Oh, sweet. So what I do is that I basically run a scaffolding construction business. People in my world already know what that is. It's basically something you sort of basically install within building industry for brickies, roofers, and blah blah blah. Got into it 2018. Yeah. Came in as a subcontractor, and worked my way up into a main contractor for a couple of project builders now. So yeah, things are on its way up, and at times it's sometimes on the way down.
And where are your clients? Western Sydney or all over?
All over the place. So project builders usually build anywhere in Sydney. So within Sydney. Yeah. We got basically work all over the place.
And mainly resi sites, residential. Yeah,
residential site. I don't really touch commercial because then you sort of have to upgrade your insurances. You sort of have to go to different sort of pays with certain employees, so stuff like that. So yeah, we try to stay away from that and keep it sort of residential turnovers.
And like before you went into business, were you in the scaffolding game? What were you doing?
Oh, so it actually goes back probably about when I was finishing or towards finishing high school. I was working with a couple of the boys who finished high school before me. Yeah. So they were doing weekend work. They were working actually as scaffolders, and I was just coming in on the weekends, filling in the gaps, to make a bit of money. Yeah. I didn't really like it then. Like it was pretty hard work, pretty hard labour intense.
It's very manual. Yeah.
Very labour intense, and then. So after that, had a bit of about 6 months scaffolding experience, like off and on. Yeah. Then I went into a couple of apprenticeships, and then fast forward a couple of years later, I became a mechanical engineer. Did about 4 years studying, did about 5 years, and then I was just like sort of over it. Then 2018, the opportunity came out to be to run a scaffolding sub company, and then just went from there.
Yeah. What do you like about it, Joe?
Well, challenges. I don't know what I like about it. I guess there is pros and cons. Like I think what I like about it is that it's up to me how it operates. Being an owner of a company and director, like you sort of, you know, if you're not making money, that's on you. If you're not getting work,
it's very accountable, eh?
Very accountable. Accountable. It's not as easy as I don't know. It's not as easy as I thought. Yeah. I think there's a lot of challenges in between and things I'm still learning about. So yeah. But
you're moving places. I understand. You know, you're developing a client base, and
Hey?
Yeah,
that's a big thing. Client base is a big thing. I think the only way that happens in this industry, I think it's with communication. I think if you don't have communication, like I've talked to people and I've buts, like that kind of stuff, that doesn't cut. Like you need to learn how to talk, and that's part of getting client base. I think communication is definitely something. Confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, believing in your product, a lot of things like that. That sort of gets you to that next level.
Yeah.
When I was young, I wasn't confident.
Weren't you?
No, I wasn't. I was talkative. I wouldn't say confident in what I was talking about.
You didn't know what you were talking about? You were just talking.
A bit of that, I still don't know. No, but yeah, I think confidence helps. Experience. I think that's what helped me to get to where I am at the moment. Life experiences. But yeah, communication is definitely to get a good client base, and communication is definitely one thing.
Yeah, I want to focus on that because I think you've got a lot of positive attributes from my journey with you, just knowing you. But one of them, I'd put that communication piece very high on the list, right?
Yeah.
So I'm pleased that you brought it up because, I think it's really important. But I guess I want to drill down a bit and understand what that is. Like, how did you get that confidence? Like you said, comes with experience, but is that a bit of a leap of faith? Like, have you got to, in inverted commas, jump off a cliff and know that you'll be all right, so to speak? Or how do you...
I don't know how it came about, but I probably learned it later on about communication because like when I was young, everyone who knows me, I'm sort of talkative as a person, but I think talking and knowing what you're talking about are two different things. And I think that experience sort of gave me that confidence. And just say, look, I'm saying and stuff and I shouldn't be. So
no, that's all right. We'll cut
that out. No, but I think it's just life experience for me sort of got me that confidence, and then went from there. I just went forward from that. So I wouldn't have to. I wouldn't put there's not exactly a point where I want to say like communication is the key, but I just don't know where I found that spot where
there was not one time where it clicked on, right?
I think it just sort of developed with experiences too. I think I was very nervous getting into even like jumping in business straight away. Like I was just like, I'd never done it before. Didn't have no ambitions to do it. It just happened and through circumstances. And then I think just communication was one thing, and then other kind of things sort of helped that.
But did you rely on other people to help you with that, like to make that jump into business, or?
Oh yeah, so I'm going to give a shout out to one of my mates, Paul. So what happened is that he's one of my good mates. So what happened is that he was already starting a subby company. He was already going his way. I had not compared the experiences of where he was and where I was. It was totally two different levels. He sort of just gave me the idea. It's like, Joe, you can start a career. I can walk you through. So I worked for him. I worked for him for like 6 months straight on weekends for free. Like it was just I just didn't gain the experience, and I put it together. I was just like, oh, well, that goes there, that goes there. I sort of gained a bit of confidence in that sense, and then seeing him how he communicates with builders and blah blah blah. Then I guess that was the experience that sort of got me to where I am now, if that makes sense.
So you were an understudy almost, right, to him?
Yeah.
But was that you sort of deliberately thinking, well, I need to figure this out?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way it sort of developed.
Yeah. I would say that. I would definitely say that because I didn't like where I was. I didn't like at that time when I was working as an engineer. I did not like it at all. Like it just didn't feel like it was for me. Was it straitjacketed or narrow in focus, or what did you? It's just like it was just probably environment, and it was also probably not my thing.
In terms of the culture of the team you're working?
Oh yeah, it was a bit of everything. I just didn't feel like it was my sort of career. I didn't feel like I was happy doing it. I guess not saying that you have to be happy to do what you got to do, but I just didn't feel like it was me. I thought. Yeah. I didn't even know scaffolding would be a thing. So everything just seemed to come apart, and so far so good. So
I think it's interesting, right? Because I mean, I don't know the construction industry like you do, but a lot of our clients are in construction and building and related services, and like construction's a hard gig.
Yeah.
And if you look at the trades within construction, like scaffolding's pretty damn tough, right?
Yeah,
we were talking about before, what is scaffolding? It's like the stuff that people walk all over, right? Yeah. But without it, they couldn't do their stuff. Right? So, like, it's interesting that despite all that, like, physical stuff of, putting scaffolding together and making it work and designing a layout that fits a particular building and what have you, and having it in place in time for the other trades, it comes down to communication in your view, right? I just think that's, like, to me that's interesting, right? And you said before, you've got to know what you're offering. You've got to know your product, yeah? And I guess you're sort of alluding to the fact that there's a bunch of people, maybe in your industry, but in other industries that maybe don't know their product.
Yeah.
Do you think?
I think it's how you sell your product. I think it's all about quality too. That's a part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, knowing your product is also quality management. I think that if you believe in your product, you know what you can deliver, and you don't overstretch that, I think that's a good starting point too. Yeah. I think sometimes from what I see a lot of people overstretch.
They promise high?
Promise high and don't deliver. Then there's people who under promise and they could have done more. So I think depending on where you want to be, yeah, I think that's a good start. But I think honesty, that's one thing I want to touch on about. So we'll talk about communication and you want to talk about honesty. I think honesty too can get you to a certain level in business. I think that's what you need. Yeah. Is that like we'll talk about over promising, not delivering. Yeah. You know. Like,
so have you learned the hard way from that, or is that just a value that you've been brought up?
I've always had that value. Yeah, I've always had that value.
So is that a family? Does that come from your family or background? Or
probably, yeah. It was
the way you are, right?
Yeah, I was always taught when I was young to be honest. Try to be honest as much as I can. Or my dad said be honest, and I was like trying to be as much as.
And you listened to him.
Yeah, yes, Dad. But yeah, so I think honesty is part of it too. So there's a lot of ingredients in order to be to a certain point in business, and I think honesty is part of it. We talked about it on the podcast last time. You won't mind.
Yeah, we did.
We talked about goodwill, and that's how you can manage value your business to a certain point. So I think we touched it on last.
Well, it's interesting. We did, and I'm just stretching back, but we did, and I think honesty is such a basic thing. You'd think, in a way, right? But as you know, we value businesses, and I think you can put a value on honesty because it does come in the goodwill of a business. It's hard when you're selling something to someone and your only ticket to ride is making money out of that sale. And then on the other side, you're thinking, but if I sell that to the person, are they going to have a good experience or a bad experience? And what impact does that have on my business? And, I think, to sort of draw out your point a bit, there's some business owners that they'll sell it regardless. And they're not too worried about the end result because it's more a transaction. Yeah. Where there are other business owners that are thinking, well, hold on, I actually need to tell that guy that they can buy my service, but they may not get what they're looking for. Yeah. And that's the honesty of saying, that's a long-term relationship, right? Yeah. It's saying, well, your best friends wouldn't tell you, but actually, you need to go for Penrith rather than Parramatta because despite the fact that you might love that product, it's not going to deliver the goods for you. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's very interesting what you're saying about honesty. Yeah. And it does. I think it does percolate through to the value of a business. Yeah. Huh?
Well, in the climate we're at now with business and stuff, like with shortage of labour and stuff like that, and shortage of nearly everything in what we have now, honesty it will play definitely a good part because you can tell build it down. Once upon a time when I first started, we were getting installs done like that in a day. Even in a day we'll get 2 installs. Yeah. Now with the amount of labour we have today, you'd be struggling to get 1 done in a day. Wow. So if you just, back then you can say, well, we can get 2 installs done as an example of what they want. Now, if you just tell them, look, with the amount of labour we've got, with the demand you guys want, we can only get X amount done. Yeah. That's when honesty comes in. And if they like it, they like it and they'll know what they're buying into. But if you're just like, yeah, look, we're playing off the back of 2 years ago when everything was going good, that sort of won't play off today. And if you're not honest about that, you're just chasing your tail because they expect this and then you're just giving them 1 when they expected 5, if that makes sense.
So thinking about that honesty on a job site, right? Yeah. And it happens in a number of industries. I mean, some of the work we do for clients is a dependency on other things, right? Yeah. But in construction, it's huge, right? Because so many trades are dependent on what you do on site and you're dependent on what other trades do on site. So it's sort of like a chain reaction if you're not honest and upfront about when you can deliver and how and what are the constraints and risks,
Yeah.
then excuse the language, fucks up a whole bunch of other people, doesn't it?
100%.
Yeah.
And it also probably gives you a bit of taste with your clients too, because what happens is, perfect example is that if you're not communicating and if you're not honest about a situation, so say if you book in scaffolding and you set it up for like say Monday, they'll have Tuesday, Wednesday, or the builders will actually have brickies coming in on a certain day. So if you deliver that on Wednesday, if you don't say nothing and you go, oh look, can I just do it on Wednesday, blah, 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 without telling him or giving him notice.
Yeah.
What that does is that bricklayer was expected to be there on Tuesday, Wednesday. So he has to reschedule his section, but for Thursday, Friday, he's probably out somewhere else.
Really?
So what happens, he gets stuck on another job, which means that pushes back that brick. So everything scaffolding plays a sort of a big role in the process.
Yeah.
Because you need platforms to sort of work and do certain things outside. I mean, they all play its role. I mean, if we don't have it done, the roofers can't do their thing, brickies can't do their thing. If the brickie's not done, the renderers can't come through. So I think everything plays a role, and I think if you're being honest and then you sort of schedule it in a sense of like, you know, a process, and just, you know, have that happening, I think everything rolls on good. But yeah, you just got to communicate that, and once you do that, everything seems to flow through.
Yeah, I'm interested. Is that a differentiation point? Like, is that one of your points of difference versus other scaffolding companies?
Yeah, so my point of difference, so I was talking to my mate Paul, so when I came into the business, I've had experience in scaffolding, but I was sort of like, wanted to be behind the scenes in the sense of business, right? So I didn't go in there going, I'm going to be the best scaffolder in Sydney. I went in there going, okay, so what do I see? How can I improve something? How can I be the point of difference?
Yeah.
Because you've got 20 million scaffolding companies out there. One thing I told my mate was, like, after I worked for 6 months for free and stuff on the weekend, I said to him, we are not offering anything new. This product is out. Like, it's been out since, 90s?
Yeah.
So I said to him, the only thing we can do, the point of difference from what I see, was quality, right?
Yeah.
So then he was just like, okay. So that's what I was trying to base the company based on. It was just quality.
Yeah.
Because if you're not coming back to fix up things, you're not holding anyone back, like with brickies, you're not holding anyone back with, you know, carpenters or whoever need the scaffolding. So point of difference for me was actually just quality. Because after looking at other people's work, you can see there's holes there. There's a gap there. There's this, that quality might be not there. Not saying I'm the best, but I just said could have been, that's the point of difference.
That's the point you saw that others weren't doing.
Yes, yeah. And then when it came to pricing, that was another thing was sort of affected. So you want to price, one thing I learned along the way too was pricing. So I was always underpricing when I first started off because I wanted the work.
Yeah.
What I realised is that because I'm offering quality over quantity, my prices sort of went to the standard rate, which was good in a sense because, like, even if a person came and approached one of my clients or builders, they'll say, oh, look, we're cheaper, use us. With them, if you got good quality, why would you change something that's not broken?
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a risk you take to save an extra $1.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing with me. So to me, my idea in scaffolding or in construction, for this company to be successful in its own right, I had to have a point of difference, and that was the only point of difference I can come up with at that time. So
that's neat. I like that.
Yeah.
And you know, particularly from what I know of construction, there's a lot that aren't that, right? There's a lot that go in win jobs at very low margins, low prices, and they want the turnover to employ their boys and girls to keep the wheels turning. Yeah. Yeah,
but that's with your lower. How would you say it? It's like a perfect example is like, okay, so you can have, I'll use it like a footy analogy, right?
Yeah.
So you can have, you can sort of fake it to a certain level. You can sort of have, you know this bloke, know that bloke. I can get to a reserve grade level. Yeah. But then you want to play NRL, and if that's the goal, all those shortcuts you take will be noticed when you climb up certain levels.
So tide will go out and you won't have much on.
Also, like your quality or the efforts, all those little 1%ers will sort of get you to the NRL, right? So in saying that, you can come as startup company in construction, whatever it is, roof tiling, scaffolding, whatever. Yeah. You will have the big players, but then you'll have certain builders on certain levels. These builders who just want to get the jobs up and slap it away. You can get away with that. You can sort of grow. Then you'll come to a point where you're dealing with bigger builders, much more project builders, bigger clients, and everything's based on quality. Yeah. You can't do what you're doing here up there and expect to get those rewards, if that makes sense. So
yeah, it does.
That's the difference. So if you can stay here and you can be happy with there, not doing everything properly, I guess. Like quality is a bit different. Yeah. But if you want to sort of excel and sort of want to grow in an industry, Only the the high quality people will stay on the top, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you've helped us understand one of the factors.
So that's just business in general, though.
But it's critical, right? Like I think a lot of people sit there and shake their heads and say, how does that work? Like, it's the difference between an elite business owner, an elite business, and just a business.
Yeah.
Like at the moment, I've got a business in let's call it construction services. That's a client of ours, right?
Yeah.
We've been going for 30 years, and we're going through a sales process because they're wanting to retire. Now, this business, I won't sort of disclose what trade they're in, but it's a tough game, just like yours. Probably not as tough as scaffolding. There's not much that is, but it's in building. Now, they've got if we go to financials, right, they've got a margin at the bottom line where their earnings before tax are over 40% of what their revenue is, right?
Yeah.
So it's a highly profitable business.
Good margins.
Yeah, for their single business. Now, if you look at the same business, right, across the country, across Australia, and what those same trade businesses are doing as a group, the average at the bottom line is 8% earnings, right? So this business is doing over 40%. And you think to yourself, how are they doing that? Like, there must be something going on there, right? And I'll tell you, most of it is about quality, it's about honesty, but it's also about sort of an innate ability of the business owners to pick their clients because they know they can deliver a good job with those clients.
Yeah.
Right. So it's sifting out the jobs that are going to be hard to deliver because of all sorts of risks that might be outside of their control. And they've just got to a point over the years where they know that we can keep our margin if we pick those 3 jobs, but if we take that one on, we're just not going to be able to do it. So we need to tell them we're not in the game for that.
Yeah.
You know, but that's you mentioned confidence before, man.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you know, it's tough in business, right? Because it's hard. Sometimes you got to look at the top line and say, well, I got to keep things going because I've got a team of people. Mm-hmm. But then you got to think of well, am I going to make any money out of the end game? And these guys have developed a level of confidence to say, well, no, I can't help you. Right? Yeah. Versus, yes, I can under these terms. Yep. This is my price because we know we can deliver and we're prepared to stake our brand to that.
Yeah, that's a bit like, it's got to do with probably reputation too. Like they've probably built that. I think when they first started, it probably would have been a bit different. I think they've probably built to a certain level and go, look, there's no point of doing that because there's no margins in it. Plus, we sort of dealing with different sort of levels now. So it's a bit like me. So I have certain prices, right? And along the way, I had to sort of work it out. So, you know, you got a zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, for example. Yeah. So if you got X amount of properties you want me to do, I'll have this price, blah, blah, blah. So the more property, the more quantity, the lower the price gets. So with those 1-out jobs and, you know, this owner builder type things, they're sort of, you know, their prices are just sort of different. Like it's like, I priced it to a point where it's sort of not, if I go in there, it's good margins, but it's not worth my time in a way. Like it's not worth my time. Everything's worth time in business. But I just think that if you're only offering me 1 compared to this person offering me 50 homes in 1 year, like the price I charge you for 1 compared to them is different. Yeah. So it's like, am I got to, like, you know, I'm not really want to, how do you say in a professional way?
You don't need to, just say it.
Like it's not worth your time and effort because a lot of those type of builders too go under. So the reputation of that too doesn't really sit well. So you're like, okay, let's just say if I charge this one for 200, I'll charge the project builders like, you know, $50, but I'm getting 50 plus homes from 1. I'm getting on 1 standard off. It's not really worth your time and effort especially if you're chasing invoices, especially if you know what I mean, things like that. You price it to a point where you don't want it. And if you do get it, it's actually worth it, if that makes sense. Yeah,
it does make sense. And it sounds obvious and basic.
It does.
Right, but from my experience, it's not.
Yeah.
Like, not in construction, but not in other industries as well. Like, I think, you know, unfortunately, you can be in business and you just get wound up in a sort of a transaction process to keep the wheels running, rather than thinking about, well, hold on, why am I here? What am I trying to do? What's my point of difference?
Yeah.
And what, you know, can I actually deliver that? Keep the client happy, you know, keep my team satisfied, and make a reasonable return out of it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that comes. See, I learned that the hard way, to be honest with you. I actually learned that with time. So my idea was that I came in sort of a bit fresh, a bit greenish, like, you know, to be honest with you. But along the way, I sort of worked out, okay, so you need to price jobs in the sense of what you're making out of it, certain margins to cover, and blah blah blah. So things like that you learn along the way. I learned along the way.
Yeah.
Like didn't have a really business background. I wasn't surrounded by that type of world. But along the way, you do learn things, and you know, sometimes you go through the hard ways, and just to learn something so small, but it all matters in the end.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. Were you always destined to go into business? Do you think of yourself as a little lad? Where did you grow up, Joe? Did you grow up in Western Sydney?
I grew up in Mount Druitt.
In Mount Druitt?
Yeah, Mount Druitt. I grew up
down the road a bit.
Yeah. So I grew up there my whole life. Then I moved to Marsden Park, bought my first property, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm at Bronte, so shout out to Bronte.
Shout out to Bronte and the beach. You got
I'll never leave.
Have you been able to stand up on a surfboard yet, or what's going on?
Not yet. I still catch a couple of waves lying down, but I haven't worked that out yet.
As soon as you stand up, let me know. I'll be out,
and
sure. I'll give it a crack.
Well, you'll probably pick it up quicker than me. So
I don't think so.
I'm still learning P's, so learn a license. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. But yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't say I was born with it. I think when I think about it, I was actually thinking about that when I was coming here. Was I destined to be this? Was I meant to blah blah blah? But I don't think I was. I think it was sort of made. I think circumstances sort of push circumstances and.
So what? Tell me, help me understand.
I don't know. Like, I knew one thing though. I was with someone at a restaurant once, and I did say something. I said, like, you know, I was on a good salary, you know, working as an engineer, blah blah blah, doing good in life, and whatever life, you know. Whatever good is. Yeah. But I thought I was doing good, right? But then I remember once I said to that person, I said to him, is this life? Like, it's just like go to work, clock in, clock out. Like, it's just like, and then go back to work on Monday. And then one thing sort of triggered it, and I'll never forget that. It was for me to, like, for where I am now, it's that I remember I was sick once, and I was actually genuinely sick. I don't really call in to go to work sick. So I called in, I said I was sick, blah, blah, blah. And they said, yeah, it's all good. I actually I went back to work, and I just felt like people were just thinking I was lying that I was sick. I'm like, I'm a grown ass man. Like, I'm grown. Like, I don't want to come to work. If I didn't want to come, I don't come. But I was actually genuinely sick, and I just got a vibe that, like, you know, it was just a bit like wasn't for me. That environment,
that culture.
It's just like I just felt like I had to answer to someone.
It was a bit of a judging culture, yeah?
What a judging culture. I don't think it was about the culture. I just think about it was me just like answering to someone. Like I'm not in school. Like, I'm not a kid, you know? Like, if I'm sick, I'm sick. If I rock up, I rock up.
So you want to manage your own destiny, yeah?
Yeah, I sort of think like certain life situations sort of put me into this position. So I wouldn't say I was destined to be. I wouldn't say I grew up with like I want to be an entrepreneur or everyone says that. I just think it just sort of happened. I think some decisions sort of pushed me to it, and some situations did, but I wouldn't say I was. I mean, if you asked me when I was in primary school what I would be, I thought I would have been a footy player or something.
A footy player?
Well, that didn't happen, so wasn't good enough.
Yeah, you're washed up, but you still play footy, right?
Oh, yeah, still now. Shout out to Windsor A grade, so.
Yeah. Do you enjoy it?
I love it. It makes me feel young, so keeps me active, keeps me going.
You've got to get something to make you feel young, right?
Yeah, I know.
Hey, what position do you play?
Second row on
I reckon
edges,
you'd be a bit of a
right side.
Bit of a contribution there to the up front.
Oh yeah, nah, I'm not fit enough to be in the middle, so.
Aren't you? But you enjoy it though.
I enjoy it though. I love it. It keeps me going. So yeah.
What does your dad think? You mentioned your dad, right? How is he, by the way?
Yeah, he's good. Last time I think he was sick. Last time we were talking. So yeah, he's good. Probably like he was probably one of the best dads you can ever ask for. I mean, a lot of things I grew up with was sort of. I thought it was hard when I was young, but everything he told me, I think I'm getting older. I'm thinking everything he was telling me was right. So
what are the things that?
Just like morals, just like, you know, like always be kind to people, you know what I mean? Like I grew up Catholic, so, you know, like he's always telling me to pray, and he always believes, he was always praying for me when I was young. Things like that just sort of taught me discipline. Yeah. Like when I look at all the acts we did and stuff like that, and we grew up with not much, but I know that with what he taught me is all I need. It wasn't about material things, it was about like life skills and morals and, you know, respecting other people and stuff like that. So
So did you have brothers and sisters to knock you around and into shape?
Yeah, so my dad's close to one of his sisters, but I think he had, don't quote me on it, but like I can't even count, so I think he had like 4 or 5 brothers and 6 sisters or something like that, along that line. So
really?
Yeah, same as me. I think I've got like, it's live, is it? It's 13. I think it's 13 with 13 all up. But
wait, hold on. There's one.
It's a footy team, but yeah, no. But I love all my brothers and sisters.
So what's your heritage? Tongan, is it?
Tongan, yeah. So my mum's a Samoan, but my dad's a Tongan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I grew up with my dad, so I'm always just saying I'm Tongan, if that makes sense.
So you were pretty happy with Samoa though in the
Oh yeah,
Cup,
definitely.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I wish I had Tonga there, but yeah, I'm definitely happy with Samoa and making the grand final and stuff. That was good.
Well, they both did well, but Samoa did particularly well, yeah.
Yeah, they did heaps good, so happy for them.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like you touched on a few things there, like you question things, yeah?
To a degree, I think sometimes I don't question things, but yeah, I guess depending on what settings and what environment and stuff like that.
Look, I think as a business owner, sometimes we can get to a point where we just, and even in life, right? Not necessarily as a business owner, we take things for granted, or we just accept assumptions, accept things the way they are.
Yeah.
But I detected as we talk along, that all the while you're ticking away, thinking about it, whether it's a job or the example you gave of being sick or what have you.
Yeah.
You're kind of thinking about, well, is that what life's about, or is that what that job's about, or have I missed something here? Or I think, I don't know, like I'm a bit reflective as I'm getting long in the tooth, right? But being able to almost take yourself out of yourself, it's a bit weird, and look down and say, well, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, do you understand? Is that actually right? Or, to be able to pressure test yourself is a big skill, right? A life skill, I think.
I think that's where I was. I think at that situation, I sort of took myself out and go, in 10 years, I'll be I was earning good money, blah, blah, blah. I had, properties and stuff. But then I was thinking to myself, in 10 years, if you stick with this job, you won't get that much of a pay rise. You'll probably earn roughly the same amount of money, but you won't go as far as you can right now. This is probably the furthest you can sort of excel in this sort of lane you've taken. Yeah. But in business, this is why I love business, is because it's totally up to you. If you fail, you've got no one to blame. Like you've actually, it's your responsibility to be where you are. I can't say, oh, my boss doesn't like me, that's why he sacks me, or this guy didn't like me, and blah, blah, blah. You can have all that sort of effect, but then if you actually, like let's just say if the opportunity came up to start something on your own, and you fail or you successful in your own right, that's all your responsibility. You got no one to blame, or this person didn't do this and that person, it's just you. Like that's it. So end of the day, I think that when I looked at that, I go, well, 10 years time, if I'm to a certain point in life, it's because you're there, not because of anyone, not because you had to get along with this person at work for you to get to a certain level. It's just you, and that's it. So I think taking on responsibility is a good thing, depending on how you look at it. But but not everyone can do it. And then I used to be really encouraging when I first kicked off. Like I used to be like, yeah, man, everyone get into it, blah, blah, blah. And some people just don't have some people love the idea. There's nothing wrong with that. The idea is obviously a great thing, but I think when it comes into actions, it's like I said, so the idea to be an NRL player, it's fine, it's wonderful, it's good, it's great, but the work you got to put in, the sacrifice you have to do, it gets a bit tricky at times. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, like sometimes I'll question myself in business. You have your moments. You're like, oh, is this for me? And stuff like that. And, you've got a lot of responsibility. You've got employees. I've got full-time workers I have to pay. And I've got then I've got people who are not paying on time. And then you've got, so much things happening. And you just got to have to juggle it. And it's definitely something, it's definitely, if you've got to get into business, don't think it's always got to work out. I think it works out probably 10% of the time, but everything else always has a bump. Yeah. If you're prepared to be, to have resilience, and if you've got that sort of attitude, that's a good thing. But you just got to go for it. Because I know a lot of smart people who are very smart, a lot of people, and I get a lot of ideas from them. I've got a couple of mentors who I think, why aren't you doing this kind of thing? And I just think that, how do you say it in a way? I just think being so observant, if you're an observing person, I think that can hold you back because you're always looking at a lot of things that can go wrong and can go right. Yeah. So, I mean, calculation's good, being a calculated person's good, But if you really want to do something, I think first step, just do it, and then you'll see where you are after that. So
have a crack.
Have a crack. Yeah.
So there's a bit of gut feel to you, the way you approach things.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, it's definitely a gut feeling. But I don't know. I think
no. I mean, I'm listening to you. I think you've given our listeners, a lot of tips there.
Yeah.
Like straightforward tips, and it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Running a business, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, figuring out whether it's right for you or wrong for you is probably the best thing you can do, right? Because
your abilities too can get you to a certain point. So I'm gonna, like, say basketball, right? Everyone can play basketball. This is how I look at business, another analogy. So everyone can play basketball. You can grab a ball, start shooting hoops. But how many LeBron James do we have out there? Probably 1, 2 maybe. To make the NBA, you got to be the top, say 5% of the world, to be on that level. But you can still run a business. You can still start it. But not everyone's got to get to that certain point. So you can get to a certain point, maybe the reserve grades or something, and you could be, if sometimes you got to work out the risk versus the reward. Is this for me? Is this what I want to do? Is this the position I want to be in? Things like that. So I think having a good understanding about yourself and where you want to be. Because I said that to when I started my business. So the first thing I said to my mates, like, look, I don't want to be the biggest scaffolding company in the world, in Australia. I don't. That wasn't my goal. My goal is basically get to a certain point, work out your certain margins, come with quality. That's your point of difference. Yeah. But I don't want to be, because what happens when you grow up in business, you realise it's like, to be like these big companies you have out there, their overheads are just as high. So you can still be the little guy in the middle and go, okay, the turnover is actually better. So what you make and what your profit is actually bigger compared to the bigger companies.
Very interesting, isn't it?
And that's through experience, and that's through understanding, that's through being in an industry and stuff like that. But what you realise is that, you could be a big company, but your overheads are just as big. So then, and your margins have to be to a certain point, and then your profits are really low. But then you can have a smaller company with less clients, quick turnovers. This is why I don't want to get in commercial, because you wait like 3 months before you get your first invoice paid. Yeah. So to me, with residential, it's usually a monthly return or a 2, depending on your terms and conditions with your clients. But it's a quicker return. But you need, because the thing to business, I find, what I've realised is cash flow is king.
Cash flow is king.
If you've got no cash flow, well then it backtracks everything.
I think you've hit on a key point there. In small businesses, there's different break points. Yeah. And a really astute small business owner particularly, but even a big business owner that's going from national to international, it's figuring out that sweet spot where your break even to the bottom line is lower risk than a situation where you've got to drive the top line so hard just to cover your basic costs before you see anything drip through. Yeah. And I see a lot of businesses in your sector, more broadly construction, but not only, in a range of other sectors, and they get that wrong because their ego is they want to grow, and they want to grow high and strong. Yeah. And then they run into just the point that you've mentioned. Yeah. They can't cover their costs, and they go out the back door. Or they go through very difficult times.
Yeah. But that comes under probably your environment, probably people who guide. Like if you've got mentors, people will give you a bit of an understanding about that. My one was actually through experience. When I was actually crunching the numbers, one day I was like, with my accountant talked, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not really in a position I thought I was, because sometimes you actually think you're to a certain point. When you crunch the numbers down, you go, oh crap, like I'm actually nowhere near it. So I crunched the numbers down, I did a bit of, and analysed the situation of where I want to be and blah, 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 and sort of made me realise, wait a minute, if I do this and have less employees, less work, blah, 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 sort it all out, crunch the numbers, I was like, you're turning over more than what you're doing now, you're doing more work. Yeah. So the thing about this is that I used to do judo, right? So I'm a yellow belt in judo, so I love judo. No, but shout out to judo boy, the guys out there. Judo. But like, I remember my teacher said to me something that was actually quite smart. He goes, you got to be real effective with least amount of effort. Be effective with the least amount of, because this guy was short, right? So I was pretty 6'2". This guy was like 5'1". Well, not 5'1", but small.
A lot smaller.
This guy's throwing me around. And I was like, bro, who is this guy? Like, he just...
How'd he do that?
But he's doing it with technique, but he's obviously experienced and stuff. But he was telling me, Joe, I'm using less... You look at you, you're puffed out. And he was just standing there going, yeah, like it's... And he said, I'm not using energy. He goes, I'm using the least amount of effort to get the main result. And that's where a couple of things like that sort of made me realise is that that can be implemented in business.
Oh, Joe, I love you bring that.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Because, it's all about technique.
Yeah.
And, you've got to be an A-grade student in technique in your industry.
Yeah.
And
you don't have to be that big. No.
And you don't have to expend the energy.
Yeah.
If you've got the technique, it'll outdo anyone in business.
Yeah.
And I think that's a key element of success.
But that's what we're going back to. Then we're going back to experience. We're going back to where life sort of pushed me to this. So it wasn't like I always wanted to be it. I think that a lot of things I've done in life is sort of a translation to where I am now. It's like, all these little life skills you sort of got. It's like, I can sort of implement it now, if that makes sense. So even things like my dad, be kind, be generous, always be for always help the people in need and stuff like that. That kind of thing is sort of implementing and made me an honest person. So that helped me in business. So a lot of things you've learned when you don't really think it means nothing, they
all add up.
It builds
right?
up. Those are the 1%ers will sort of make you as to where you are now. So,
but I hear you talking about it, and it's almost like you seem to have a very long-term focus. Like you seem to have. Is that right or no? Or it's sort of a forward. You come across to me, you're looking forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably would say that. I probably would say I like to look forward. I don't really like to look backwards much. Not much to look back to. So. No, but so just, I like looking forward in general. I think I'm more of a forward person. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that I don't look backwards at occasions to see how I can get better. But yeah.
If you're at an occasion with other people, right, other businesses.
Yeah.
Are you the dude that's standing in the corner, sort of observing things, or are you the dude that's out there meeting people and talking?
No, I'll probably be more the networking. Like I said, I'll probably be more the guy you're not going to know unless you ask. And that's where it comes from confidence. You can be that person, like I said, observer. People who observe, they always look at the things in a different lens. Yeah. Where I try to give it a crack. Where giving it a crack is facing your fears. What I was actually doing earlier, I just was sort of, I remember, I'm going back memory lane. 2019, I was I'm starting to get equipment. I was starting to grow a little bit into the business. I was like, man, I got to call people, cold calling. Yeah. And I was nervous what do I say? And I was rehearsing. Okay, so when they answer, I just think they say, hi, this is Joe, or All State Scaffolding, how you going? I'm here to basically sell your product, right?
Yeah, so, I've got 5 houses, Joe.
No, but I was literally going, how do I do it? Nervous, blah, blah, blah. And you just got to give it a crack. Because even that could even deteriorate someone's idea. It's just conversation, communicating could be the difference of oh man, do I have to talk to that bloke? No, I don't know if I can do it. Well, if you don't know you can do it, that's that boundary from hesitation from you to actually going to the next level or staying where you are. So me, I was always nervous. I was calling, even when I was calling, someone would say, oh no mate, we're good, bang. But the thing what got me going was what's the worst thing they got to say? Oh sorry mate, we got other suppliers. It's not going to really hurt me.
It's not going to be bad. Yeah.
So the first couple of goes, I had a crack, and then blah blah blah, and then eventually you start getting, you cold calling. I mean, it's a bit more old schoolish. I think we got Instagram, we got all these Facebooks and stuff. But cold calling is still, I think, it's still a thing. Just getting on the phone. I'm not at that level now. Now it's just sort of recommendations and blah. I get people calling me and stuff. But I remember the days when I started. Man, just that was in I was what? What's that? Calling people. But now, doing that, anything I do now in life, it's more based on just have a crack. What's the worst thing can happen? Yeah. But going back to the scenario you're saying about it, if you're in a place of a lot of business in a room, what would you do? Well, that's exactly what I'll do. I'll get out there, network, communicate, all those life skills I've had in life, just use that at that moment. Because the confidence I gained from those cold calls will give me confidence enough to walk up to anyone and sell them a product or what I have.
So do you have to be inquisitive, or do you just have to have you have to just be prepared to put yourself out there?
I think you got to be. I think it's a mix of a lot of things. It's a mix of you got to be sort of, you got to be sort of funny. Maybe you got to not come across. There's a lot of things.
Serious. Be a bit charismatic.
Yeah, be charismatic and stuff like that. I think you got to have a vibe about you. I mean, you don't want to go to talk to someone who's got a sort of a just don't talk vibe.
Yeah.
I don't know. You just
do you have to take an interest, maybe?
Yeah, you got to take an interest, and you got to meet them at a certain level. Okay, so my thing is, so I've been in rooms, I've been in boxes, I've been I've met certain people in certain life, and I never thought I'd meet. So there's these people in good positions in their life. One thing I noticed was the icebreaker is sports. So because everyone seems to relate to some sort of sport, whether it's soccer, footy, AFL or something, everyone's generally like 99% of the people in the world, no matter what level you are in life.
It calibrates a bit.
Yeah, so there's someone's interested in something. So you might be interested in ice hockey, you know what I mean? A CEO might be interested in ice hockey, but you know footy, but sport. Yeah. You know what I mean? And if you can sort of relate, that's an icebreaker usually I find, you know, sports and meeting people, because personally I don't know them, they don't know me, but if you're interested in sports, that's sort of the icebreaker. I just watched the Penrith Panthers the other night, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, what about
the second half? Oh, they died.
Yeah, but then they'll be like, I'll go for the Roosters. But then bang, you're straight away, oh, what about the Roosters? They got us next week. And things like that can sort of be the icebreaker. And then from there, because last thing one person wants to, I noticed too, like I was at a box watching a Sydney Swans game, right? And there was like executive, I don't even know who they are. I got invited, so I was just thankful for that. So shout out to who invited me. Yeah. But do you know what they were talking about?
What, Jay?
They weren't talking about work.
No.
See what I mean? They were talking about the Swans game, they were talking about stuff like that.
Some leisure.
And the third thing they came up to me is, oh, you play footy. You know what I mean? I was like, bang, there you go.
There was a connection.
That was that connection of conversation, right? Yeah. So bang, it's like, okay, are you into the Wallabies? Are you into rugby? You know what I mean? And things like that, and you can sort of have a background. If you have an idea about it, you can go with that idea, and then eventually it just filters down to whatever you're there for, you know what I mean? But
I think you shouldn't take that skill for granted. I don't know that you do, but I'll reflect on my situation, right? My experience.
Yeah.
And shout out to Clayton at True Exercise Science, because he introduced us, right? And
shout out to Clayton.
Yeah. And he introduced us, right? And we've got to know each other. But it didn't take long to get to know you, right? Yeah. I mean, each time I meet you, I marvel in the dynamics of the person, because there's a lot there. Pat on your back there, if I could get to your back. You know, there is a lot there. You've got a lot going for you, I think. But you know, immediately in terms of the communication, we were on a particular level where, and it was, yeah, no one was
genuine.
Genuine. No one was up one another or down one another. It was just, it didn't matter who we were or where we'd come from, right? And to me, that's very special, right?
Yeah.
On a personal level, but also at a business level.
Yeah.
Because if you can get communications like that from day one, or a high percentage of them like that, maybe not all of them, but then the opportunities for you as an individual and as a business person are infinitesimal, because you've made that connection in the right way, in a genuine way, right? Yeah. And I think if I look at situations, personal and business, so many opportunities are stymied right from the start, because that communication was stuffed up right from the start, you know?
Yeah.
And people don't know what they're doing necessarily by doing it. They're not doing it deliberately, but it's just not working.
Yeah.
Because as humans, we come to a discussion, you know, with a particular perspective or a view on things, and we're not open-minded when we come, right? So I don't know. It's probably a bit deep, but I really value that. Like,
it's not deep.
It's not deep. It's going deep.
Yeah. But I think it to me, maybe I'll give that vibe, or you know what you're talking about, or I'll give that sort of scent out, because like it's a lack of something else, right? So in my understanding is that, like, even from a young age, like I just talk. You know, I always talked. I was always disruptive. I was always a kid who just always had, you know, just running around doing a lot of things what I probably shouldn't be doing. But I noticed is that I wasn't as intelligent as a lot of kids around me. So what I had to work out, we learned that later on, but it was because I wasn't a smart kid by the books, you know, by this, like whatever that is.
Yeah.
But I noticed is that, okay, so I can't like read and write as good as these kids and understand the literature and stuff like that.
Yeah.
One thing I did know is I can talk. So part of my talking was my skill in life. That's what gets me. I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm not going to be a successful doctor, even if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Because that's not my lane. It's understanding where you are in life, right? So my life, let's just say if I was 5'11", good luck trying to make the NBA no matter how hard you try. I'm never going to be LeBron James. Unfortunately, that's the cards I got dealt with, right? It is what it is. I think accepting of who you are and see where you're good and see what you're not so good at is go with that. And I think communication with me it's a thing, I guess. Like, you know, it's not the first time I've heard that I'm good at communicating, but if you get me to, you know, let's just study some sort of book, I don't think I'll be on that sort of level in the sense of certain other people. So I think I just went good with what I went with. Like, so I went good with what I was good at, and I rolled with that and used that as sort of my leverage, if that makes sense.
But the important thing is, I think, you know that you're good at it.
Yeah.
Right? And because you know you're good at it, you figured it out, you can have confidence in it, right?
Correct.
And you can use it. It's not just communication for communication's sake.
Yeah.
It's communication with intent.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think, that's the difference, whether you use it for your personal side or for your business side.
Yeah.
And so, look, I really enjoyed that part of the discussion, right? Because it's like the key elements, right? Strip things down. We can talk about all these big words about how to run a business or how to run your life, but they're pretty basic stuff at the end of the day, right?
It really is too. Like, I don't think people talk about that as much. I think people, like, I've talked to technical people, and then just me as a person and just me coming across and keeping it, because that's one thing too, is I like to keep it basic as possible, because it's easier for me to understand, and it's easier for the average person, I'm assuming. So to me, if I could get that to a certain level, I guess everyone, because there's only a percentage you can speak like a doctor, right? There's only a certain percentage you can speak like a doctor in that sort of level. But there's a lot more other people you can understand to a baseline. There's a lot more other people you can address your certain message to, right? So to me, I try to keep it as basic as possible. You get technical when you have to get technical, but most of the time I like to keep it sort of on a base level of what I'm doing or how I'm doing it, because it's really not that hard. Like, you know what I mean? And it's to a degree.
I love that. So if I look at you and your business, communication, honesty, business developer, networker, probably it sounds like good at overall organisation, because you've got a lot of moving parts there, right? Yeah. So are those the key things that you sort of focus on in your business, man?
My one is basically, I'm probably more the salesman of the business.
Salesman?
Yeah, I'm probably come across as more of the salesman. But you do need a team. I think that team's another thing in business. You do need a team, and you do need to look after your workers. You do need to, I mean, whether they're with you or not or whatever it is, but a lot of them, I think that to a degree, you do need to look after employees. If you want the best, you sort of got to pay the best. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing I've learned to a certain degree. But just a lot of things. But structure is important too. Yeah. Because you can sort of wing it to a certain point in business. Yeah. But then it'll come to a point where you need structure if you want to go to that next level. Structure is definitely another. So there's communication, there's structure, there's a lot of other ingredients, but we'll probably go along the way and we'll probably pick ones out. So
in terms of jobs on site, your team, do you have someone in the business that focuses more on that side of the business?
Yeah, so right now because I'm a small business, like I do have guys who are employed for that, but then also I have to still oversee it. So you still got to communicate that, and one day I'm hoping to be on a position where I just don't actually have to go on the ground at all completely. I did do something like that with one of my mates, and obviously so he's got his thing to do. We sort of collaborated for a bit, and it just didn't work out. But we're still friends, as close friends and stuff. But we had an understanding that maybe what he wanted and what I wanted didn't work out. So now I'm back to the ground and sort of figuring all the other things out, like sorting that out, plus talking to builders and plus getting all the admin stuff right. So so it's a lot of moving parts. But if your structure's set, I think that helps a lot too. So along the way, and another thing too, that you don't have to have it all in one hit. You don't have to have it all set, ready to go. I think along the way you'll pick up a lot of skills, you'll pick up a lot of things, and structure will sort of always reset itself nearly every 6 months. But things like that, you don't.
I think that's an interesting point, because a lot of us have got motivations and aspirations we've got big appetites, right? Yeah. So we want everything now in place, where there's another way of looking at it that you just got to, you mentioned the 1%ers before, but you've just got to incrementally see things improve, right? And you don't need everything at once. I guess you've got to be smart about thinking about, well, if you had 10 things to get delivered, what are the three that are most important.
Exactly.
And obviously put your energy into those.
Yeah.
But it's a tricky game, right? And because of moving parts, and the labour market at the moment is tricky, obviously, in a range of industries, let alone yours, I imagine.
Yeah, it's definitely on a demand right now, labour shortage. I don't know where it went. I don't know where it went.
Are they going to appear like they just sort of, they crawled into some cupboards for a while? Or?
I think once they open the borders for overseas, I think a lot of migrants will come through, and maybe we'll get a couple of them coming through. But I just don't know where. I don't know. People don't want to work. People just want to save money. So I think I'm doing something wrong. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
There's a number of my clients across a range of industries that are having the same issue. Right? So it's not just.
I don't know what it is though. Like what happened after COVID? Just no one's come back to work or something. I don't know.
Well, I think closing the borders for that period, it obviously made things pretty tight.
Yeah.
And then.
Are they back open? Are they?
Well, they are. I think they are. Whether the run rate's there, I'm not sure. And then the other thing is, particularly in your game, the construction sector hasn't really slowed down much. I don't know whether you're seeing. No.
I mean, right now, if the labour was there, it's up for the grabs. Like, really, if you can supply and demand is the demand is high, and if you can supply, you'll fit right in.
But you need sufficient labour to do the job.
Labour's a shortage at the moment, so you can't even promise that. So
it's tricky, isn't it?
It's definitely tricky. I was talking to a roof fascia and gutter guys, I think it was yesterday on his job site, and they were telling me man, there's only two of them. And there's sometimes they get an occasional guy to come in and help them out, but it's definitely, I don't know. I just don't know where they went. It's shortage everywhere. Bricklayers.
Yeah, no, it's a real challenge, all right?
But it's there for the grabs. It's there for the taking at the same time. So it's a bit of a tricky situation, if that makes sense.
Well, it is. I mean, I know some clients of mine that are managing it quite well, but what they're doing, and it's because they've been running solid businesses, so they've got solid profit line.
Yeah.
They're basically taking some of that profit and reinvesting in labour and building their team larger than it needs to be, basically. So it's almost like an insurance policy, right?
Yeah.
But they're saying, well, we used to need two tradies doing this, and this. We're going to have three now.
Yep.
And it might be hard to find, but if we get three, we know we're going to be a bit heavier than we want to be, but we're happy to do that rather than make extra profit at the bottom line, but be exposed because we can't be bidding for jobs.
Yeah.
But some people can do that and some people can't. There's no silver bullet in all of that.
But one thing, right now we're in a period where it's actually good, and it's actually a good thing for probably small businesses. The strong will survive, the weak will die off. So if you're in a business and you're just getting by, I think in a year you'll probably be exposed to be. I want to know how they will go, but the big companies, if you're doing good and you've got solid work and you've got a good clientele, I think you'll be fine. But I don't see the construction industry slowing down. But there's a lot of studies. You got to look at statistics. You got to look at a lot of things. Even governments in power, it plays a role in all of it. So it's a bit in the air right now. But all I can say is that if you're still running a business in a year from now, you're doing pretty good, because a lot of them will go under due to labour, whatever it is. But it's also just due to labour too. That was probably one of the big things. You can't run a business without labour.
No. So, that's a good point. And the people that are spending their time putting good teams together.
That'll be the point of difference too right now. So. Yeah.
And look, we used to we'd look at the team when we'd value a business, right? But we'd look at it a bit superficially and also more on numbers than anything else, right? Cost and numbers of people and what their structure looked like. But we wouldn't spend a lot of time looking at the quality of the team.
Yeah.
Now, when we're valuing a business, we drill down into every team member pretty much and look at how long they've been with the business, what are their skills, capabilities, what's the culture of the business and the culture of the team, because it's critical to whether that's an elite business that's got sustainable earnings.
What would you say is a successful culture in your experience in a business?
Well, that's tricky, right? Because I don't think there's one answer to that. Right, but for me, I'll give you an example. And it was in our business, and I'm not saying that we have a wonderful culture, right? We're developing it, right? But, you know, a few months ago, one of my team delivered a valuation to a client. And we finished it off, and we thought it was a good job, and they did all the checks and everything and sent it off. And then he came to me later in the afternoon and he said, "Oh, James," he said, "just so you know, I forgot to change XYZ at the back of the document. It's not been updated properly and it reflects the wrong thing." And I said, "Listen, mate, thanks for letting me know. Fix it up, you know, and I'll talk to the client and just let them know we're sending a fresh copy," right?
Yeah.
Now that sounds very, very basic, right? But he was prepared to put up his hand and say, "I made a mistake.
Yeah.
I didn't do this right, and I'm concerned about how the client will take it."
Yeah.
And importantly, rather than me, you know, pulling off my belt and wrapping him over the head, no, I wouldn't have done that. But you know, rather than tearing strips off him for stuffing up, you know, I simply had his back and said, "Listen, I'll talk to the client and make sure everything's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling me. Move on." Right?
Yeah.
We're moving on. And the next discussion I have with him now, I just said, "Now we need to learn from that next time. How can we avoid that situation? Just have a think about it and share that experience with the other team members." Right?
Yeah.
So to me, I sat back and I thought, you know, that's something I've learnt, because typically I would have been disgruntled about that, right?
Yeah.
And he would have known, right? But I think a culture that, to summarise, that can make mistakes, can learn from things as individuals and as a team, where the team knows the strengths and weaknesses of each other, and they're openly happy to talk about that amongst themselves, and that each other feels like everyone in the team's got their back, right? If you've got a culture like that in business or on the footy field, or, you know, anywhere else, I think you're unbeatable, right? Because the strength of knowing that someone's got your back when you're up against it, like you talk about confidence, it's a huge layer of support, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's also that accountability. It's not support in a sort of a soft sense, because there's also the individual accountability that you've got to have someone else's back, but you're going to be accountable for what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, to me, those things are, you know, the real strength of a culture, of a group of people.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
That's my view. I'm interested in yours.
It's basically having employees take accountability for what they've done wrong, but also be upfront and say, "Look, I screwed up. Like, this is where I was weak at."
And not being frightened to do that, right?
I know what you're saying.
You know, that because the minute they're frightened, I mean, it's a shame.
Yeah.
But what they're actually doing, they don't realise, by not raising it and just leaving it, because they're too frightened to raise it because they think they'll get hit over the head. Or
it actually doesn't make them better.
Well, no. Yeah. And also, what's it doing for the team members?
Yeah.
Or the business? Because there's this, you know, this minefield sitting out there waiting to go off, and no one knows about it. You know? So I think, I don't know, I can go on and on about that, because I don't think there's a right or wrong culture, but there's some of the attributes that I think are really, you know, and how you as a leader and a manager, how you develop that.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess it's a reflection of how you react to that. So, like, as a director or a boss, so and that sort of sets the tone. So if you're carrying on screaming, carrying on, I don't think they'll come up straight off next time. I think they'll cover it up.
No,
which wouldn't be a good thing for the business. And
that's exactly right. And, you know, in my younger years, Joe, I would have been just that person, right?
Yeah. You're still young, what are you talking about?
Well, in a relative sense, yeah. But now, you know, I kind of learnt that that's not necessarily the way to get the best out of people.
Nah, I think that's another word too. I think, like, what's necessary? That's a big thing. It's a word I sort of kept on this year. Is that really necessary? You know what I mean? I think if you have that sort of just step back for like 5 seconds ago, like, is that necessary? Not really. Then move on.
Yeah, look, I mean, I went on for 5 minutes talking about culture, and in one fell sweep, like...
Oh, but you know what I mean? Is it necessary to scream and yell? Is it necessary to tell, like, to be firm?
No, but I love your insight. Yeah, it's in one word, is it necessary? Well, 3 words. Is it necessary? Right? What a great question to ask oneself.
Yeah.
To check yourself about, you know, whether you're reacting in the right way or whether you're thinking about things in the right way. I love it, you know.
But that's something you sort of develop too through time. I think through time you get that and things like that. Like, you know, like we were talking about, you know, when you were younger days, like I was only like 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I was different. I took things differently, and I think now things will faze me then wouldn't faze me now because it's just not necessary.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bigger picture, and I think if you say that to yourself too with a lot of situations, the bigger picture's here. This is just minor. Like it's not worth the energy.
Yeah.
But there is corrections. There's times where you do need to sort of correct things and hold people accountable and make sure you're firm and direct. But also there's times where it's just not necessary to be so negative in a way. You know what I mean? So, but
I spoke to a CEO of a company yesterday, right?
Yeah.
They've got $7 billion US in sales.
Can they give me a loan?
Well, no, because I asked for it first. Anyhow, the CEO is an Australian bloke, and he's a really decent dude, right? And he was reflecting on the last 12 months, and he was critically appraising himself in front of us about, you know, he said, you know, we're trying to do this, this, and this, and I've been reflecting on how I've managed the business in the last 12 months, and he said, to come to think of it, you know, we've got all these problems, and it's been like bushfires, and we've been dealing with them. And if I reflect on my performance as CEO, he said, I've been negative. I've focused on the negatives all the way along. And he said, in a way, because we've had to fix those things.
Yeah.
Right? But he said, if I look at my performance now, really, I've learned that I actually should have been focusing on the positives. And I should have been pulling out the positives and developing things from there. Yep. Because he said the team around me, all they've heard about me is the negatives. And so they're down in the dumps because they just feel negative, and it's just an ever-decreasing circle.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think there's a lot to be said for having perhaps, you know, thinking about what's necessary, as you say.
Yeah.
And yes, if the hard word needs to be had because it needs to be frank and clear, and you know things aren't right, well, fine. But there's also opportunities to build from the positive.
Yeah. Like things are not necessary. Like one thing that comes to my mind is that like emotional decisions, you know, based on that moment. And if you take 5 minutes to breathe and think about it and analyse it and go from there, you realise, fuck, there's other ways to go about things. And I think that's one thing I learned too. I'm definitely a bit more, I wouldn't say late, I'm definitely a bit more aware of what certain situations are.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely way more firmer. Like it's like, I'm more firmer, but I'm also more, like, is it necessary to at times, you know, like I'm a bit more cutthroat where rather than, you know, when you can approach the situation a bit more aggressively, that doesn't solve nothing. Yeah. But you can be a bit more cut, like, hey, look, listen, maybe your plans and my plans are two different things, and where I want to be and when you want to be, maybe it's not working out, so maybe just cut tight, like things like that. Yeah. You know, and then you can see the difference between them too, whether they want it or not, you know, and they'll be like, and when you have that, like when you have that honesty about it and you just cut it straight through the middle, you can see where they are at with it, you know, because sometimes people are not happy and they're not saying nothing. Because
they're just unsure, right?
They're unsure, but then if you tell them how it is and where you want to be and where you want to see them go, I think sometimes, you know, communication, like we're on basic.
Well, we've just gone back to it, right?
Yeah. But it's always communication. In business, guys, it's communication. It's key. Cash flow and communication is key.
Cash flow and communication. Joe, I've really enjoyed having you on board today.
Anytime.
Hey? Like communication and cash flow is key.
It's key.
Honesty. And I think, you know, the more I listen to you, like you're a dude that you know your strengths, right? You know your weaknesses. Yeah. And your ability you've got this innate ability to question that and refine it and develop it, right? And Like, I think that's unique, frankly. It's unique as a person, but it's also unique in business.
Yeah.
And it's little wonder that you're doing what you're doing and building a strong business, and you're a first-class dude.
Appreciate it.
You know, we appreciate having you on today.
No, I appreciate. What's this podcast called?
Let's Talk Business.
Let's Talk Business. Let's Talk Business. Shout out to Let's Talk Business too. So I appreciate you bringing me in, and yeah, thanks, James, for the invite. So we've got to do it again.
Cheers, man. We will do it again.
Do it again when you're ready.
Thank you, Joseph.
All right, guys. Cheers.
So weren't we lucky to have Joe Vea on Let's Talk Business today from All State Scaffolding. I mean, as a business owner, but also as a person, you know, relatively young in years, but very mature around how he understands the keys to running a good business, building a good business, but also, you know, developing himself as a person and his ability as a person to add value. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to this podcast and follow us on Instagram at JamesC_Price. And if you're up for improving your business, gaining access to knowledge, insights, our team and consultations, join our online membership portal. Visit jpabusiness.com.au.